or if you are online. Anyway, let's get started. Hey, okay, so we're going to dive right in. So my name is Ward. I'm one of the first growth hackers in Europe or outside of the US. I've been working on it as a independent growth hacking coach ever since the whole topic came to life. I have worked for many cool companies, from TikTok to Pepsi to Purina, Unilever, all different kinds of companies, and it's always the kinds of challenges around how can we get better at growth, how can we grow to a next stage. But I've also worked with many startups. I've been a coach at Startup Weekend or Young Creators Community, and yeah, I love sharing knowledge. So it's cool to see how the field of growth is really maturing, and you see new challenges pop up at each level. So it's first the challenge will be running your first experiment, then running 10 experiments, then running better experiments, running more significant experiments. So it's always a nice challenge to have. So first, I thought let's start with the toughest question of them all, and that is, I've got these slides in Dutch. That's not so nice.
We're not there yet with the Dutch.
No, that's not so nice. Hey, so just basically translated, what is growth? I think you could have guessed that almost. So it's the question of what is growth, and I see this as one of the biggest questions, because most of the time you see that what is growth is seen as getting more revenue. Well, in reality, most ideally, you don't focus on just pushing revenue. Because what happens when you keep asking your customers to pay more, to buy more stuff, to invest on a higher plan, everything like that, it pushes away people. So the real growth doesn't come from when you focus on your revenue, but there is something else. So this is just the best predictor. Sorry, this is the last slide that I will have in Dutch, and then we go back to English again. So the question is, what's the best predictor for growth? And the best predictor for growth is that you give value. And you will see that if you give value, and it's just if you are valuable to your customers, your users, your community, you build trust. People will be willing to spend more. They will be a customer for longer. They will be more of ambassadors to your brand. So they also refer more people to you. So it's all those things that come from being useful to your audience, and that's what the real growth is all about. So why are we here today? Today we are here because growth is a big challenge, and I think that we all have these ideas and we want them to grow. And I think it's the key to being able to grow quickly and be able to grow sustainably over the upcoming years is that you will have to be adapting over time. So this is a fun story of Blockbuster. Who knows Blockbuster? Or do people only know it because of the new Netflix series?
No, we know it. We know it.
Yeah, we know it.
Yeah? Okay. So tell me, what is or was Blockbuster?
It was a place where you can rent different movies, from DVDs to the HV, the other ones. So yeah, you can go and rent different types of movies and genders and everything.
Yes, exactly. And what's the difference with Netflix?
It was kind of the pricing, in a sense. in terms that, well, nowadays Netflix is way cheaper because Blockbuster was way more expensive because you had to pay for each film that you get, and the business model was kind of different, and the experience by itself, you had to go. Well, they offer different experience, but it was a little bit harder on Blockbuster.
Yeah, but also like both of them were physical, but Blockbuster didn't want to adapt, and Netflix, I think they were the first one to change their model.
Exactly. So this is indeed the fun story of Blockbuster, that they even did the research on this internet thing. Is that something we should look into, guys? Is they asked all these consultants, and they said no, it's fine. This internet, it's nothing for us. And people are saying that they like going to the store and turning around all the movies to read on the back what's going on, and what the movie will be about, and maybe bumping into a neighbor. But like it's I don't know about you guys, but for me it's really like the difference of just hitting the remote, starting a movie. I really prefer that, and I think that's the typical example indeed of not being willing to adapt. And I think this is one of the examples where it's adapting is really important for big companies, even as a Blockbuster, that they were everywhere. They were by far the biggest, and you see this happen everywhere. Like if you look at the 10 biggest companies 20 years ago, that's completely different from what it is nowadays, and it's really hard to maintain position for bigger companies as well. And that's because new startups like some of the companies I work with, new pop-ups, startups pop up every day. So this is just beta list where it's like 6 to 8 new startups every day. So I'll move on because I get dizzy from the screen all the time. But it's just the 6 to 8 new startups, and every startup is thinking that they will be the next Uber or the next Blockbuster, and some of them will be. Every startup is after one of those companies, and every one of them is in a new angle. So we are getting into like this age of not survival of the fittest, but survival of the most agile. Who is most capable of adapting to new rules, new ways of working, new technologies? I think first we had the pandemic that absolutely shocked everybody. Now we have this huge run with AI, where also like being able to adapt here is going to be insane. Google just are now trying to catch up with ChatGPT and Bing, all of all search companies. Like they have to catch up with Bing all of a sudden. So that is like the survival of the most agile. And I think like for you guys, you are still speedboats in an ocean of cruise ships. So for you, it's still easy to be flexible. But even for you, it's going to be a challenge of what is it that people are looking for, and how can I adapt to those wishes? And one of the fun things is, I think it's really, don't forget how much easier things have become. Like back in the days, we only had 64 kilobytes to put the first man on the moon. That was kind of like the technological advancement that we have. And nowadays, it's like this GIF that I use in the background of a slide is many times bigger than than everything that we had back then. And this is something that we see going back in cost of advertising, time needed to build websites and apps, but also like the ease of online communication is how much easier it is becoming to grow. And I think that is just awesome for all of you to be in the startup scene right now, and how easy it's going to be to ship new things and build new stuff. That's awesome. So I thought of all the questions, let's start with the most difficult ones. Like, you guys can ask me everything, but this is the most difficult question that I always get is, what is growth hacking? And it's like, even for me, this is still, it's still a term that everybody uses in different ways. And it's still like, there is no set definition to it. So please take a shot at it and share it in the chat. What is growth hacking to you?
I'll try. So to me, yeah. So I can't put it in words, but I can try to bring an example to the table. So maybe because I'm a social media creator, but also an entrepreneur, maybe growth hacking is being able to grow my business on an user and revenue perspective, while working in something that maybe is not directly related, such as, for example, let's say followers. So what if I create a piece of content that is so viral that it actually gets me more sales and more users? So to me, maybe that's growth hacking, is having a strategy that gives you the value maybe where you don't think it is when you think of it in the first time.
Yeah, nice. And I see some other definitions indeed in the chat also popping up. Being able to adapt easily to change, find ways to grow and break bottlenecks in the funnel, different set of tactics designed to grow a company from the product. And lastly, we have experimenting and learning. So I think indeed there are multiple possible definitions to it. I always say that it's the whole field of growth hacking it's becoming a field of its own. It's a specialism for people in business to be in growth as a profession. And that is because it's like the first time that we are making this the responsibility of one person or one team within a company. And it's for many years it has just been or still in many companies, who is responsible for the growth rate of company? It's probably the CEO is responsible, but he or she is also responsible for the vision of the company, of the some of the tough decisions that will be made. It's also PR that is part of their job. So maybe marketing, but marketing also has to run the day-to-day stuff, the next newsletter that needs to go out. So the real growth of a company has always been like a side job for many people. And for that reason, I think that this is like a big breakthrough moment for a field like growth hacking to get its own place and get its own possibility. And I think the interesting thing about it is the reason why it is so interesting is that nobody knows what will work, because even though another company might have done exactly what you are going to do right now, and they did it 3 years ago, like during pandemic, before pandemic, it's completely different. So what worked for them probably won't work for you. So it's every concept has a different audience, a different problem, different product, different context. So for that reason, we need to test to see what works. And it's that constant steps of trying to find out what works and how to get things better. So what is the best image, visual to explain our product in one go? Or what is the best channel to reach our audience? What is the best price to sell it for? Maybe we can, I've had startups where I worked, we 10x the price and our conversion rate actually went up. So that is like the things that you want to be testing all the time. And it's exactly that of testing and understanding what works and what doesn't, that is the process of growth hacking. It's trying to find out what works and what doesn't, and what is the best direction for us to continue in. So this is what it looks like. So I'm going to explain this loop in a second, but it's basically, it's a simple loop of trying to run one experiment. Like you get our ideas, you rank them, you outline the test, you work on it, you study the outcome, and you repeat it time and time again. And it's, most of them won't work, and then suddenly you have a big winner. And that's like, you have this bar of growth for your company, and you lift it up to the next level, and it's going to be higher and higher, and every time your growth is going to get better, and your company will be in a better state. So next up is another Dutch slide. So damn it. Okay, so basically it's every time you're going to be running experiments, and you will see that sometimes you go into a plus and sometimes you have a negative outcome on an experiment. So did it work well or it did not? And over time you will see, so hey, nice, we have one experiment, and nice, we are getting better at this. And the next time it's, okay, this is not working, but at least now we are learning the things that are important to people. Because it's also some of the times that when you remove something that worked very well and you add it back in, then suddenly you will understand, oh, so actually that thing that we removed was important to people. And then, nice, okay, so now we're going to get more resources and more revenue because now we're getting big wins, and you can experiment more and take bigger risks. So over time, you'll get better. And this is process of experimenting. This is an insane statistic of difference of growth between like the SAP 500, so the 500, simply said, the 500 biggest companies and their growth rate versus like the experimenters index, which is a collection of 500 companies that are known for experimenting a lot. And like the difference that they see is like an 8 times difference in growth rate, because they are experimenting, because they are trying to learn what works, what doesn't. And if something works, we double down. If it doesn't, we scale back. And that's the process of experimenting.
So, sorry to interrupt you. I saw, Francisco, you had your hand raised. You want to ask a question?
Yes. Yes. I was reading an article yesterday that a lot of companies, a lot of startups made a mistake to follow the process that you mentioned. Like, you have an idea, you have a new feature, and you deploy it. You have a growth for a while, but then the company starts to slow down, and it's kind of repetitive. But at the end, you don't have a constant rate of growth. So how to avoid that? How to have a better strategy in that?
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is, like, if you see this graph, and I know you can't read the Dutch with it, but it's like, imagine if you run an experiment and something fails, then what do? If your gut instinct is, okay, we're not gonna do that, and we move on to something else, and then the next thing is, oh, nice, now we have a win, and you think, okay, we're going to just implement this, then you're just acting based on a number. So if a number is positive or negative, but the thing is that you need to understand why is something having a positive or a negative impact. So for example, if something is a negative impact, let's say, can we go off script here? And if I say we go to Pygma and say, so you guys can still see the screen, right? You can still see, you see the Pygma website now, if I'm correct. Yep. Yeah, okay, good. So let's say we're going to the site here. This is what it looks like. And what if we say, okay, this title really isn't going to work. We need to swap these two things around. And instead of saying the result that you get out of it, we swap it around and we start with we are a 12-week program for pre-seed companies. If we would put that as the title of our page, and we see a negative result, that means that we learn that people actually give a damn about this as a sentence. It means that people find this interesting, important. So the question is why? So then it's like, okay, yeah, I have this as an ambition. I want to grow 10x. And if you remove this, it doesn't speak to my ambition. So by learning this, by learning like you need to speak to my ambition, all of a sudden, that is a very interesting insight. So your next step should be, okay, how else can we show our ambition and how ambitious we are as a company? And then you say, oh, nice, we should show how many companies we are helping, what the average growth is of the company, how big the community is. And it's those kinds of stuff that is like a fail can most of the times be even more interesting than when you have a big win. And the same goes for a win. If you would have just implemented the 12-week program because you think, oh, this is a great title, 12 weeks sounds ready to go as a clear thing, but maybe people turned on because of the word pre-seed and they think, oh, this is for me, then, okay, then you're not learning and you're going to fall back down every now and then. And I think that is like you need to continue learning about what is really benefiting your growth and what isn't. Does that kind of answer your question, Francisco?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, thanks. Nice.
Amazing, thanks.
Okay. Then I'm going to go back to my slides. So, okay, so growth hacking is the first time that we make one person or team responsible for growth. And the coolest thing about this is now that we are suddenly making this like the main responsibility for a group of people or for a few people or a big team or anything like that, all of a sudden, we need processes on how to run this, systems. And there's a lot of stuff suddenly arising of how do we do growth? How do we get a grip on growth? Where most of the time before growth hacking, I have to admit this has been more of a gut feeling thing. There are more and more processes popping up everywhere. So I'm going to be sharing this slide deck afterwards. And I'm putting in all of these buttons. And for those of you who don't know, yes, a PDF can contain clickable buttons. So if you get this as a PDF later on, you can just click on it and I will have links to all of the different resources that I'm referring to. So keep an eye on that. Now, this is where the real growth comes from. It's new processes that help us get a grip on growth, and it's really creating a process of how are we systematically going to work on growing faster time over time. Because we want to also see those growth hacks, as Juanse also referred to. It's those big blasts of sometimes going viral or getting a huge spike, but sometimes it's more ideal to get like I rather have one improvement where it means that from now on every month I will get 100 extra customers instead of a tactic that I launched today that gets me 1,000 today, but not repetitive. So it's like both of those things are useful, but it's we want to ideally make this a systematic approach so that over time we will grow systematically. I will walk you through all of it in just a moment. Yeah. Any questions until now? I don't have the chat open. Juanco asked, I'll change the order as finding new ways to hack growth in order to get new users. As an adjustment to side. Yeah, Christina, you wanted to ask something.
Yes, I do, because that's exactly what I was going to ask you. And then what I've seen lately is that the growth process is they use it more as a loop rather than, because I always use the parrot funnel that helped me quite a lot. But then I see that you also have the growth like kind of like a model. And that's what I was going to ask you. These days, everyone is talking about loops rather than just a singular like process. And I just wanted you to tell us a bit more of why is it looping and why is it important that it's a loop instead of just a straight line process?
Yeah, that's a good one. This is indeed as a working process. You will have this loop of this cycle of repeating repetitive experiments, and you want to run experiments that are building on top of each other. So you're focusing on one metric and you're circling around that in your process as well, and you keep getting back to getting ideas. You do something, you get an outcome from it, and that gives you new ideas. So it's that loop of a process. This is the pirate funnel, and this is more of a you have all these different stages of a company, and the question is, where do I lose most of these people? I will get back into both processes, and I think if you are referring to growth loops, we can do a whole separate workshop on how to build growth loops into a company. I did a big workshop on it this morning. Happens to be. So yeah, now happy to explain more of it. But this is more of a working process, and this is more of a how you break down your company and where to focus on. So this is also, you see here we have the pirate funnel, and the pirate funnel is going just before as a preparation step before the looping process.
So then if you do the pirate funnel, you understand, okay, these are the bottlenecks. And therefore, for example, I would like to focus on these challenges for doing the experiments on the growth. Yeah, okay.
Yes, cool. Yes, exactly. Okay. But of all things, if there's one thing that I can ask you guys to take with you from this whole presentation, from growth hacking, it's the mindset. And the mindset is, first of all, it's about being open-minded about the possible reasons behind why something is a bottleneck. So if you see people coming to your website and they are not converting, then being open to all the possible reasons will avoid. Sorry. Give me a second. I have my own Siri that is popping up here on the screen. Okay. So being open-minded is about being open to all the possible reasons as to why people are not converting, or also if you know why people are not converting, being open-minded to what the ideal solution is like. And this is like the thing is where I see it go wrong most of the times is if I would go to the Pygma side, for example, and I see people are not converting, I could have dozens of ideas why it is not working or why it is. But I think like if you would see, if you go in straight away with the idea, I know what is wrong and this is how I'm going to fix it, there is a huge chance that you have it wrong. There are so many possible reasons that it's mathematically impossible that you will be guessing on the wrong button to push and on the right button to push. So it's most of the time you will have a worse impact. So be open to learning why people are dropping off and what are all the possible options for us to be working on. Second, it's being data-driven. And this goes hand in hand with the first. It doesn't per se mean data as in zeros and ones. It means data as in having feedback. So you have hard data, which are the numbers, but you also have soft data. And I think that, especially since I hear a few of you talk about more of that you guys already have a community, your community is a huge source of data, and it's as in feedback. People will tell you what they feel is right or wrong, and that is the kind of data that you want to be building on. It's qualitative data, and it's that kind of data that will really help you from being that will steer you away from being wrong. So it's all of the options that you could guess on. It's try to have something to back up on the choices that you are going to make. Whether it's just one or two customers saying, this is the reason why I would not convert on this landing page, or what I think is wrong, that's already 100 times better than you have a 10 to 100 times bigger success chance than when you have to when you're going to guess all of it by yourself. Okay, next up, we have speed over perfection. So this means that it's almost always better to focus on being fast than on trying to do something perfectly. As I was showing with the slide with all the circles of all of the experiments, in my experience, the best growth hackers have a success rate of like 1 in 3 experiments is going to be a success. The other 2 are not really having that big of an impact. When you are just starting out as a junior growth hacker, 1 in 10 experiments maybe will be a big success. So imagine that let's say you run 1 experiment every week. If for the next 9 weeks, everything you're going to be doing is going to be a waste, then at least try to not put too much time and effort into it. And so that you just try it on a light scale. Try a light version of most of your ideas so that you can try it quickly, see your feedback, and then iterate on it quicker. So it's just take into account that most of the experiments will fail. And that's not to discourage you guys, but it's most of the ideas that simply won't work. And for that reason, try not to spend too much time on every idea. And most ideas, ideally, you just try them out somewhat lightly. So that's the one thing that I would love for all of you to just take with you, trying to be open-minded, be data-driven, and go with speed over perfection. Any questions until here? After this, we're going to go more deep into the process, but afterwards, but let's first do a few questions.
I do have a question. I said I was excited for this one, so I do have a lot of questions. But if anyone has any questions, just please raise your hands and then we can go there. I do have a question, Ward, because according to the growth hacking book, they said, okay, you first need to find like a bit of product market fit before you even start thinking, okay, we're gonna do growth now, etc. What are your thoughts on, because I mean, we're really speaking with very early stage companies. So what are your thoughts on when do we need to start doing growth? When it's a good time to start approaching? I mean, experimenting is always good, but when do you think it's, okay, let's find this team of people, because probably the resources are also very scattered. So when do you think it's a good time for early stage companies? And when do you think, okay, this is the best time for you to start doing it?
Yeah, so a good question. I think if we see growth hacking as trying to create like the best possible version of our company, and that is also like with bigger companies, we are still trying to be agile and adapt to being the most ideal company. I think it's never too early to be experimenting, learning based on the data, being open-minded, and having speed over perfection. So I think in that sense, it's like it's never too early to be trying out different directions and learning from it. So if you learn from it and you can document on what is and is not working, you can start on that fairly quickly. But indeed, I agree. It's not the you should not try to push for growth metrics too soon. But in the beginning, it's just about getting your qualitative feedback. So it's about learning. Do people like it? And on that kind of level. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks a lot. And now we
Yes.
have